Justin Jefferson was one of the worst, one of the most egregious underperformers here for week 17. 1 catch on 5 targets for 15 yards. I'll ask you this, Matt. What in the hell happened there in Minnesota?
Anytime a receiver gets shut down like this, there's a lot of factors at play.
Look at the release.
There's your separation.
Great route.
Stutter and go. Gets by clean.
That is unbelievable.
Maybe the greatest catch I've ever seen.
We want to make this a mano-y-mano thing, listen, Jaire Alexander sounds like he wants to make it a mano-y-mano thing.
Right.
Talking which, by the way, hey, Jaire, talk your shit. You earned
absolutely.
it.
Yes.
Aaron Rodgers said too, if you're going to talk like that, you better back it up with your play. And he absolutely backed it up with his play, so he deserves to go and talk and make himself, put himself out there. He 100% deserves that. You grittied over the guy early in the game too. And everybody's like,
I know.
Don't do that. Cause then he's but it's a
up.
wide receiver thing that when this happens, it's also a quarterback thing. So there's a lot and there's a coaching staff failure too, when something like this happens. Focusing on what Green Bay did specifically, you could see in this game there was a lot of different ways, and especially when you go back and look at the film today, there's a lot of different ways that Green Bay decided to attack here. We've seen teams do this with Justin Jefferson before, where you get the cornerback up there and you just press the shit out of him. You go real hard and teams have done this with the Dolphins receivers as well. It's not okay, Justin Jefferson has a problem with press coverage or with the Dolphins example, those guys have problems with press coverage. What are we talking about though? We're talking about disrupting the timing of the play. And though what Green Bay did for several times, they did at different times, they had safety help over the top of Justin Jefferson, but they also had, and this is great too, because the Vikings are pretty good about getting, Justin Jefferson, not into the Cooper Kupp role, but into advantageous positions. They'll move him from the flanker, move him closer to the offensive line. They'll even put him in the slot sometimes too. And when they did that, the Packers would have Jaire Alexander play outside leverage, press coverage with outside leverage on Jefferson, but then they'd have the safety kind of bracketing him and playing the inside leverage there. So if he's got an in breaker, the safety cuts it off. If he takes to the outside, Jaire is on a pretty good position there. So a lot of really fun ways, and then obviously some cloud stuff and zone coverage too. So they had a really great game plan to sit there and say, 18 is not going to go crazy on us. That's what's not going to happen. We might give up some stuff here and there, but 18 is not going to go crazy on us. And this is the reason why that's a great way to attack it. And why I think this is a problem for the Vikings is that you can't just completely go into the crapper when one guy, when they're dedicating this many resources to one guy. But this is the thing with the Vikings all year, from an efficiency standpoint, for the most part, they've been a slightly above average or even average offense at different parts of the year because they don't have anything else. Their other receivers don't win enough. Kirk goes into his head. I think that's a big problem too. Cause that's the thing, James, as well. Last point on this is I get it. The coverage looks are not advantageous. And then when Jefferson's route and timing is disrupted, then the pressure it's that much closer to pressure coming on Cousins. And when he's pressured, we know he goes haywire, but you can't leave a game where you lose by this big of a deficit. What is it? 41-17. And it wasn't even really that close.
No. Yeah.
You can't leave a game where you have this big of a deficit and throw to your best player 5 times. That's also on the coaching staff to get Jefferson a screen, get him when the times when they do play off coverage, get him a quick slant, a drag route, something like that, just to get these guys into rhythm. Cause that is, it's definitely a full-on team-based failure because when Jefferson doesn't go crate, when he doesn't go into elite mode, this offense just unfortunately doesn't have a lot of other answers, and they can't run the ball either, which is a little astounding.
It's just absolutely head scratching when you think about, okay, you've got Dalvin Cook out here going up against a Green Bay running defense that absolutely cannot stop the run. And wake me up if you heard this one before, but Green Bay sucks at stopping the run. That's been it's it goes back to Mike McCarthy teams. They can't stop the run for whatever reason. Why can't they figure out how to stop the damn run? I don't understand. Can I give you some coverage statistics actually in this ball game? Because I was very, very interested in how maybe Green Bay was going to change up what they did. here in week 17 versus all the way back in week number 1.
Oh,
But
God,
in week number 1, and by the way, Green Bay definitely came in with a hyper specific game plan, because in this ball game they went cover 2 more than I think they've ever gone cover 2 at any point in the season. So this is in week number 1 they went primarily cover 3 and cover 4. And I don't want to get into too many of the specifics of it, but there's a lot of single high safeties in these coverages in cover 3 especially, right? So in this particular one, they went split safety, so 2 high safeties, 73% of the time. And that's a pretty large number. So I think in this particular game, they're like, hey, listen, you talk about the cloud coverages or whatever it might be. They're using that with the split safeties up top. That's not what they did in week number 1, right? They try to go single high. And, bottom line is, it's funny when some of these cornerbacks, get all rah and hyped up and everything. And then you look at the numbers and it's like, oh, they played zone coverage 86% of the time. It's like, Jaire, how many times were you manned up with Justin Jefferson, dude? Like, like, come on. It's zone coverage 86% of the time for Green Bay right now. So they used a lot of zone coverage. Obviously, they did that in week 1 as well. But cover 3 versus now a lot of cover 2 and split high safeties and doing a lot more of that. I'll say this: in week number 1, they went. I looked this up on. This is according to Next Gen Stats, but they went to cover 2 0% of the time, 0%. And so in this one, they went up to about 12% cover 2, but threw in a lot of cover 6 looks and cover 4 looks, and basically went split high, split safeties on 75% of their defensive snaps. So they did significantly alter the way they approached this game with Justin Jefferson.
I totally get it too, because Jaire Alexander was very critical of the team's game plan in week 1. Remember, after Jefferson went insane in that game, he even said, like, yeah, I wanted to track him around the field. And to his credit, he did, even if he's not 100% man coverage, like he was moving around with him, and was a part of that coverage plan. No matter what, like, with man coverage, zone coverage, he was a huge part of getting the jam on him early and being a big part of why this one catch performance happened. He was very critical about not being allowed to do that early on in the first game of the season. And, he even then, of course, said like it was a fluke. And then he, before this game and he backed up the talk. That's all that matters. Like, you can talk all you want and then you back it up, which is great to see. So I think it was really encouraging. Obviously, so it's super discouraging for Minnesota, but very encouraging for Green Bay, because I don't think that Joe Barry's been a great defensive coordinator for them. I think that they have struggled to come up with specific game plans like this.
Oh yeah.
I think they've struggled to, despite all the talent, all the resources they've thrown into this defense, but the results have been great over the last month or so, the month plus, and the schedule has been part of that. They played the Baker Mayfield LA Rams, they played the Bears, stuff like that. The Vikings are, a very mercurial offense as well, despite being a good team with a good record. But
right,
at the end of the day, I think they've really turned this defense around here of late, and putting a performance like that on film is just a good resume booster for Green Bay as they look likely to make the playoffs. We'll see what happens. Obviously, next week they control their own destiny, but there's a good chance we see this matchup again. There's definitely a non-0% chance we see this matchup again, and I can't wait to see how part 3 goes.
Minnesota just absolutely bombed against Green Bay, and then now the NFL gifting Green Bay with a very advantageous scheduling change. By the way, the NFL changed their schedule to make this game happen, which is very interesting. We're talking about the Lions needing to beat Green Bay to keep Seattle in it. So that's an interesting one, and certainly all the tinfoil guys are out there talking about the conspiracy theory of it all.
Last thing on the Justin Jefferson side of this.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if like I said, if a wide receiver gets shut down like this, it is not, and I'm not just here, caping up for big receiver. Okay. But like, you've got to have, it's a full team failure when stuff like this happens, like a one catch performance and you lose the game like this. It's one thing, because early in the year, so much was made about that, Justin Jefferson performance against the Lions when they, really, they were one of the first teams that really dedicated a game plan to shutting down Justin Jefferson. Well, they still won the game. Okay. So it's like, whatever.
Right.
But when you get blown out like this and your best players held to one catch, there's a lot of failures that need to be criticized. And obviously, I think I'm always going to bring it back to Cousins, and that when things aren't cleanly laid out for him, he can go into haywire mode very, very quickly. And I like a lot of the coaching. I think you got to give a lot of credit to Kevin O'Connell and the offensive side of the ball here for what they've done this year. But I think this was a failure there to not adjust at some point during the game.
No, I think that's right, and that makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah, so you're right. It was definitely a system-wide failure. Of that, there is no doubt.